Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. I'm Matt. So excited to be here tonight because it was a last-minute thing, and my man came through. How are you tonight, Josh?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for having me, man. This is incredible. I'm stoked to be here.
Oh, well, I appreciate it because I love what you bring to the table as well, man. You know, whether it's your YouTube channel or your TikTok. I discovered you on TikTok first, actually, which is crazy because I'm a huge, consumer of Booktube. But we'll get into kind of like when you started that here in a minute. But yeah, man, I love what you do. You talk about books that you know of, that you're familiar with. You do a good job of talking about what's inside them, how you felt about it, why they're important to you, and it's that clarity that I've seen to. That's my spot, at least when it comes to bookish content. Because if I find somebody I enjoy listening to, it's how fast I can understand what they're saying and the clarity in which they're speaking of a book. And you do that very well.
Oh, I appreciate it. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
All right. So where do you hail from tonight, my man?
I am in the freezing North Carolina drunk weather right now. We had our first snow of the year. For those of you who don't know, North Carolina tends to not get super cold. It gets a little bit, but it's not too bad. And below freezing around here, it's notable. So it's real cold for us right now over here.
Well, see, we're not that far away, and we're experiencing a very similar climate because I'm in Ohio. And
so you know cold.
Yeah. So it's like, it gets cold. Don't get me wrong. You're not walking outside and without a jacket on, but it's usually not this cold already, man. It's frigid out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was talking to my neighbor actually not too long ago, and we like to take walks as a family. And he has not seen us the past couple of days because it's been real cold. And he's like, hope everybody's okay. I mean, we're regulars, once a day you see us walking, and he's like, hope everybody's all right. It's like, yeah, we're good. It's just, super freaking cold.
Yeah, like
not about it right now.
Thing out there right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we were taking our kids to the babysitters this morning, there's a woman that we always see. And so to give you a little reference, it's like 8:15 in the morning, 8 o'clock, something like that. And she's always walking her dog, like every single day. And I didn't expect to see her today. She's got that personal inside discipline, man. She was out there trucking along. She's like, you know what? This cold's not stopping me. We're going for a walk today. So kudos.
Oof. Couldn't be me. I couldn't do it. I'm an inside cat. It is not, I'm not about it when it gets this cold.
The cold is one thing. I do enjoy snow though. I do enjoy like riding on a snowmobile. I got to grow up riding those in Michigan where my mom and dad are from. And that was a lot of fun. But there's a difference between the outside with snow, and then there's a point where it gets so cold. Look, let's just stay inside. Let's have some hot chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to work with a guy who lived in, I think he said he used to live in Iowa, and he would talk like it's a whole different thing. Like they moved out here. So, total different climate. And he always talked about like, it would get to a certain point, and he's like, yeah, I'm just hanging out in the house. I'll go out and shovel a couple times, but like there's nothing out there worth doing.
It's miserable. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, whatever you'd like to tell us. Just if this was an about me section of something you were filling out, what would it say?
Oh, geez. It's real tough to talk about yourself. If
you're a family man.
Yeah. I got a wife, and we just had our first baby. He's 3 months old today, actually, or today. So,
man,
yeah, that has been amazing. Yeah, we
watch
love
out
him so
because
much.
it becomes 4 really quick, bro.
Oh yeah, I could see. I could see how that would happen. You get to the point where they're sleeping through the night and they're just cute, and you're like, I could do this again, and then I could do this again, and then I could do it again, and you look up, there you go, 4. Yeah, it's incredible. So Yeah, we're real happy. If you would come across me on the internet, I've got a problem that I'm like a serial hobbyist. So you might find me on all different places on the internet, which is really funny, but you would probably find me on TikTok.
Yeah.
I talk about books over on TikTok. I've been doing that for a few months and it's been going really well recently. Um, I've made YouTube videos before. If you were to go onto my YouTube channel now, you'll find, videos from a couple years ago. Um, I tinker, man. I have like, I try and write on the side. Um,
Okay.
I've been doing a history podcast, like all kinds of random stuff. I have far too many hobbies for my own good. I'll be completely honest with you. But
It's
I get
fun.
the main things are, talking about books, reading books, writing, and a few other things as well.
So you're a history guy.
I do like some history.
What
Yeah.
do you have a favorite subject or a favorite couple?
You know, I really enjoy ancient history. Um, I think it gets really fun. And I say ancient, it gets up into like medieval history as well. I think when you're like really detached from it and you can look at the stories for what they are without like if you're going to talk about World War II, which I know a lot of people love World War II, and
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of reading in Vietnam recently. So like more recent stuff, it's cool, but it also like some of the same themes are still present today,
Oh,
and it's the human suffering element of it is just like awful and you can sort of still somewhat relate to it. But if you go back and you start talking about like the Assyrians or the Romans or something, like we're so far detached from it, you just see what's cool about it and you don't have to worry about any of the like the gross stuff about it because it's so far back.
some of the ways that they had to live back, and I'm not a huge. I'm getting there. I think you commented on what I'm reading right now is, and this will be kind of like my first adventure into like the medieval history. But I'm really
Oh
enjoying
yeah.
Henry V.
Yeah. Dan
Um,
Jones is incredible, man.
I have. I've been wanting to read his fantasy series, like what is it? Something Wolves.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm blanking on the name, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's I think it's a series set in like the 1300s or something like that.
I know that it's got some history in it, and so you can tell the guy really enjoys history. But it is like the historical fiction. I just wanted to kind of grab something that I, I was really into World War II history, and I've kind of burned myself out on it. And you spend a lot of time in negativity,
Yeah.
learning the different aspects and people in World War II, and just the absolutely depravity some of the people had to deal with. And you're right. Like if you go back far enough and see the conditions that people had to deal with or the punishments over things I guess maybe they should be punished for, or sometimes a lot of the time a lot they didn't.
Yeah.
Um, just misery and torture, which sheds a light on why we have certain laws today, like the use of what is it? I can't remember the name. Something like that. You can't use certain torture methods to hurt people, obviously, but I can't remember the exact unethical punishment or cruel punishment. Anyway, my brain's mush. Sorry, but yeah. Anyway, you go back far enough, and you start learning about these terrible living conditions. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, but it's fascinating at a point that I'm so far away from it. I'm learning of it. That's about as fascinating as I want it to be. Right? I don't want to be there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you separate like, modern history, I say modern, like the last 150 years, there's ideology associated with it as well. And,
Mm,
that stuff doesn't go away. Ideas don't die out quickly. They die out slowly. And we're still dealing with a lot of the same ideas that were prevalent like 50, 60, 70 years ago. Like nobody wants to deal with some of those things. Like we have real life problems and we don't want to add on to that, dealing with some of these ideological things. But like if you go back to ancient history, there's really I mean, there's some ideology, some, kernels of things, but for the most part, like there's a famous saying about ancient history that is even if it's not true, you have to believe ancient history because it's so shrouded in myth and sometimes you don't know if the ancient history that we accept as truth. You don't know if it's actually real or not because it's so bundled together with myth and Greek gods and things
And
like.
those with the ability to write that history. Wow, we could go on a long spree with this one. But those privileged enough to write that history down, it would be hard to tell in some cases. Obviously, there's very accurate, sources and stuff like that, which I have no knowledge of. But
Right.
I feel like there's certain areas in history that the ones privileged enough to write it down, we don't really know if they were the winners, the losers, so
For
things
sure.
could get gray.
For sure. Yeah, you'll find stuff where it's kings will destroy a place and they get to tell the story of how that war went, and you don't get the other side of the story. So you don't know, you don't have a clue how it all shook out. You don't know what the actual truth of it is. You only know like this guy said it happened this way, so that's I guess how it went. And
I think that's why so many people are interested in it too. Like, let's get the story as full as I can, and I'm going to make up my own decision. And I think
yeah,
that's smart. If you have that kind of attitude, I think that that can be interesting. It can take up a lot of time, and by the end, if there is an end, right, of this endless amount of history,
right,
you'll maybe think something of your own.
right, right.
Joanna, thank you for being here. It's been a while. It's good to see you. And she just checked your channel out, Josh. Yeah, it's great. Dude's blowing up on TikTok, man. We got like 27,000 followers now, bro.
Something I haven't checked recently. I had a couple of videos do really, really well. And it kind of went pretty wild there for a little bit. So
So did you jump in a short amount of time? And did that kind of like happen super quick?
yeah, like TikTok's really interesting as a platform because you can kind of labor in the shadows and not get anything out of it for a long time. And then one or two videos will pop. And then all of a sudden your channel 3X's, 4X's, whatever. I've had that happen a few times where like a video topic will do really, really well and it'll get several 100,000 views. And it's like, oh my God, you wake up the next morning and like, you've gained several thousand followers. It's crazy.
You've got one
Um,
video with like 870,000 views, bro. That's huge.
yeah. So the crazy thing is in a weekend, I had a video that got 1 million views and then that one that's got 800,000. And then TikTok, like a week ago, decided the 1 million views one just was going to go away. And so it's gone for some reason.
Just kind of like ended
Just disappeared.
Yeah, dude, that's weird, man.
But
We'll
they were
never
within like
understand.
3 days of each other. And then, I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts.
My wife has been doing TikTok for a minute and she's done really well as far as like she's a graphic designer. So she sells like her graphic design drives, which is like an accumulation of all of her different, files and stuff. And people pay for that drive. And now she started a really cool thing where she's an affiliate where she'll talk about products and she'll give her honest, a review of it. If you're
Yeah.
interested, you can click the link, blah, blah, blah. If you buy it, she gets commission. But she's very excited to do it, man. And just kind of the aspect in which the companies are like, look, be honest. Like, don't, because if you get a name, right, the people want to trust your name. And if
Yep.
you're kind of just saying, oh, this is great, and it's not,
Yeah.
but it's very cool to see it, man. And she's very excited about it. She does really well.
Man, it's fun. It's fun.
Her, and that's it, by the way. Sorry. That's it. Cruel and Unusual Punishments. That's it.
There it is. Yeah.
I also saw Brian Bell up here, man. What is it? -19 wind chill, bro. That's instant shrink factor, right? Your nipples can cut diamonds in an ice storm at that point.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes you just got to stop me. But dude, that's freaking cold.
Ooh, couldn't do it. Couldn't be me.
Good to see you already overbooked. I know your real name is just. I'm having a blank at the moment. It'll come to me probably as soon as this ends. What's up, Molly? A wonderful, wonderful self-love author right here. If you want a good horror book that has a nice emotional side to it, a good relationship.
Cool.
Oh man, my wife talks about this book probably daily, and she's like Loves it, dude.
That is awesome.
What an awesome cover, right?
That is sick.
Epic.
Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah, I had not read a ton of horror until this year. In fact, like I hardly ever read any horror, and then this year I picked up The Horror by David Sodergren.
Oh, dude, I've heard of
Such a
him.
good little book.
I hear he's
Such a good
intense.
little book. It's so good.
What was the title of it?
The Horror, Haar.
Okay.
It's about this old Scottish lady, and developers are trying to take her house, and it gets like super, super weird. But there's the soul of it is she really misses her husband, and so you connect to that like emotional soul of it. And like that's basically the through line. The through line of the book is this old lady just misses her husband who's passed away, and you got the external conflict of these people want to steal her house, and like it's crazy book. But
I can see how like I would have an instant kind of empathy with that
right
character.
Yeah,
Like
and that's like
my grandmother or something.
Exactly, and that's the part of it it kind of pulls you in because it's such a relatable emotion to kind of base the story on, and then it gets gnarly.
Yeah, from what I've heard, and it's funny you say his name, man. Today was the first day I heard his name. I watched a guy, his Bloodfire Jeff is his name on TikTok.
Love Jeff.
Yeah, dude, he's awesome. He was talking about he's heard that I forget what's it, Sodergren, yeah, that he's really intense as far as kind of over the top horror.
Yes, yeah, I could see
enjoy that.
Yeah.
Also, hold on, I felt the need. It was calling to me, so I have to shout it out. A guy that I started reading. Here it is. Right about the time I started reading, when I was 29, I started reading, and it was mostly fantasy and James Rollins, the Sigma Force novels. But I also picked up this guy, man, and he is awesome. All of his books are creepy. Alex North.
Cool.
He's got this one called The Angel Maker. He's got The Shadows. And then he's got one called, which is the first one. Well, it's not really the first one, but his first published piece, I guess, is called The Whisper Man. It was really, really good.
Nice. I'll have to check him out.
Always have to talk about something that I love, just in case anybody else would love it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So when and which one was first for you? Was it YouTube or TikTok?
It was definitely YouTube. I gave a shot at Booktube like 2 years ago. And I haven't deleted the videos. They are still there, and they're an experience. I liked the idea of, you know how like I don't know if you've heard of Matt D'Avella on YouTube, but he kind of does these like really cinematic, more so like self-help style videos. And I really love the idea of blending kind of like a productivity self-help style of video with reading and writing and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I made like a few videos. I had been writing a book, and I had finished a manuscript, and I was, talking about that and things like that. And then I guess it didn't gain enough traction to where it was like, this is actually somewhat viable. And so I kind of just stopped. And then, I started doing TikTok maybe 6 months ago, and it's gotten enough traction where I was like, maybe I should go back and start doing some YouTube and have something that's easier to build like community around. Because if TikTok's amazing, but it is kind of like a dip in, dip out sort of thing. And I really wanted to like, you make a lot of friends on there, but it is, people go on TikTok to kind of like mindlessly scroll, whereas YouTube I feel like it's got a bit more staying power.
It does. And I get what you're saying. Like what I do does not translate into like tens of thousands of subscribers quickly. It doesn't. Because what I like to do is, and I'll never change it. Like I'm never going to like switch what I'm doing and love to do to be a part of an algorithm that I have no idea. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I love that you're saying, it's got more of a punch. And I'll tell you what, 99%, in fact, everybody over here in the chats, I can bet that they're all going to be here every time that I go live, man. And that's a
That's
cool
incredible.
feeling, like having the same people and that grow, and then those same people along with your old. It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
And then TikTok, I think there's a similar feel to it, but it's more punchy and quick. Uh, with Booktube, it's maybe more of a loyal following. I don't know. Just my experience, just because I'm kind of new to TikTok, newish as far as book stuff goes. I really haven't gotten down how to do TikTok just because I'm used to long format stuff like this. I do well with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
As far as keeping a conversation going, the quick ones, I don't know if I have something to say quickly that's that interesting. I'm trying to.
It's like a whole different animal. Like you almost have to rewire your brain for how to do TikTok versus YouTube. Like I did the Joe Abercrombie video the other day. And I had wanted to do like some kind of a tier ranking video on TikTok, but it was going to be too long. And if you're going to do a video that you're like, this might be more than 3 minutes, probably not a good TikTok video.
Yeah.
And it ended up being like a really snappy YouTube video. It was like a 7-minute video. And, you know, for YouTube, I have in my head like the 10-minute mark. Like that's a
perfect.
pretty good YouTube video. For TikTok, not going to work. And it's like you just almost have to think about videos entirely differently, which I mean, I don't even think I've figured TikTok out, but I feel like there are things that have worked and you just sort of keep doing those same things over and over and over again and trying to do something new with them and just sort of see what happens.
One of the first videos I ever saw of yours, and I don't know if it's a new video or an old video, a middle bit, like I don't know as far as when it came across, but the where you talked about The Lies of Locke Lamora being one of your favorite books, of just that's a perfect book to you. I think that was the words you said.
Yeah.
And I think you do it really well. If you did what you do well with TikTok and expand on that a little more, I think that's a perfect YouTube video because you're very clear. You're easy to listen to. You can easily understand your dictation and the way you speak, which is very important. Some people, I'm like, I don't know what they're really trying to say. And I'm that person. Sometimes I'll ramble my way around the topic so much that I don't even hit the topic.
You know, it's interesting. I don't know if you've seen Michael Kist on TikTok. He does a lot of like history and fantasy books, but I think he really blew up talking about history. And like, say one thing about TikTok, it is primarily, at least from what I've seen, like in terms of the book community, it's mostly like a female driven sort of thing. So when you see a guy get really big talking about history books, it was just a little bit different for me. And maybe there are others beyond him, but I just remember he was doing a video talking about like, here's things you should do if you want to do TikTok videos. And he was like, cut every single ounce of fat. Don't repeat yourself. People will get it. Like trust the viewer to understand what you're saying. And you only got to say it one time. Say it one time, say it clear, and then move on and go to the next part. You know, if you're going to do it on YouTube, you can probably take some time and sort of reiterate what you're trying to say, but it's on there, man. Say it one time, say it snappy, and move on to the next thing.
You know, guys that I see on YouTube that do it well, and they have an ingredient that I don't really, I mean, I know why I love their channels, but why it differs for me. I know that I ramble, I do. And I think getting to the point is a huge thing. Me, I feel like I have to explain why you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why am I saying this? And that warrants a longer video.
For sure. Yeah.
And who I'm speaking of is like Mike's book reviews, Matt's fantasy book reviews, Bell too, Brian Bell. He does really well, dude. Like within the first 3 weeks, I remember seeing him, and I think he had like 2 videos. And I said to my wife, I was like, he has 2 videos out, and this dude's got like 50 less subscribers than me. And I've been on here for a year, and he just does it well. He's a showman.
Yeah.
And he gets to the point. And I'm going to learn that. I'm in the middle of it. And
yeah, dude, it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you almost have to work on.
Absolutely, man. Well, that's cool, dude. I love hearing about kind of the experience you've had Why did you start doing book content, bookish content, whether it was YouTube or TikTok? Why did you do it, or like start it, and why have you continued?
Yeah, I probably started. I mean, I read a ton as a kid. Um, it's that age old thing where you read you devour books as a kid, and then you get into school and you get the assigned reading, and you're like, I don't have time for whatever the book is for you. Like it was Scarlet Letter for me. I just remember having like an aversion to reading the Scarlet Letter in high school. And it was sort of just emblematic of you get the classics and they make you read the classics at 16 and it just doesn't hit. And I came back to it and I don't remember. I think it was the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. I think I picked that up. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. And that was probably the first fantasy series I read through. And I just remember thinking it was the coolest shit I'd ever seen in my life. Like it was just so awesome. The magic system in there is incredible. And then it really just kind of was a one thing led to another. And I have always been creative. And, like I said, I kind of tinker with a bunch of different things. And I was basically like, I see other people making content about books, and I was like, I have all the skills required to do that. I could absolutely go make videos about, this, that, and the other thing. And then my problem has been sticking with stuff, and TikTok's been the one that I've been able to stick with because I think it's gained enough traction where it's like I can actually continue to keep putting time to this. And there's been like I've made friends on there and developed community on there, and it's been really, really fun.
You said 6
But
months were out about on TikTok, right?
yeah, give or take. I probably started May, June, July this year, something like that.
Yeah, 27,000 followers in 6 months it's very, very good, man. I think that's a wonderful thing that you're sticking with it. I certainly look forward to it. I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm stoked about it.
So you have the foundation that I find most of the time, at least from what I'm gathering when you're talking. You grew up reading quite frequently.
Yeah, a ton. Redwall, man. I
Okay.
crushed those Redwall books as a kid. Love those things.
Got him right behind somebody. Michael Schultheis, that's his name. He's actually a self-pub author too. Oh, here they are. Here they are. He knows I have young kids, and he's like, "Look, I just received all of these in the mail one day," and he's like, "That is my childhood right there."
That's incredible.
And I'm so excited to get to it with my kids. I've never read it.
I cannot wait to read those books with my kid. Like,
what is it about the series?
I don't know. I think there's a nostalgia element to it. It was just so different from anything else that you're reading. And like when you're a kid, anything that is remotely cool, where there's like adventure, heists or things like that, like you just gravitate towards it. And again, it's probably because when you're in school, when you're in elementary school, middle school, they want you to read the school books.
Yeah.
And you go read Redwall and you're like, this is very different. You've got talking mice and rabbits, yes, and they have accents. And it's like, there's these Scottish characters and then there's these British characters, and you got coming of age stories, and you have big old badgers that just wreck people. It's incredible.
5 or 50. That sounds like a freaking blast.
Yeah, it's a freaking blast. That's a good way to put it. Like, I think when I found out that Brian Jakes, the author, had passed away, like I shut myself in my room for a week and was just, and I think he passed away a long time before I found out he had actually passed away. I thought he was still alive for a long time when I was reading the books in middle school. And I think I read somewhere that, he had passed away like 10 years before or something like that. And I was like, I can't believe I'm never going to meet this guy because I just want to meet him. You are
not alone on that, man.
They're so cool.
I know for sure I could name probably 10 people, not with 100% accuracy, but I've at least heard Redwall being somebody's absolute favorite, especially growing up. Like right along with Narnia or right along with The Hobbit, just
Yeah.
as influential in why they continued to read books today. And that's so cool, man, because that's very different uh, to the reason that I started reading. I didn't start reading until I was 29. I remember what I read the first time, and I was in the hospital, and I had spent a lot of time in the hospital, and I hated it, obviously. And I just can't. I was like, what can I do, man, just to get through this crap? And I picked up a James Rowling. Well, I listened to it on audiobook, and that was kind of my reason for getting in, just so you kind of have a picture of why I'm here.
Hmm.
But it's those differences in story that I've come to really love, and I want to give my children that experience from like what I hear that you had.
Yeah.
As a kid, being interested and driven and filled with passion and dedication to read adventure stories or just you work that muscle called the imagination.
Yeah. What do you get asked like where should I start reading on here a lot? Is that a question you get?
Not very often, no, because a lot of the people that I talk to or a part of the community are very, very well read.
Yeah.
I've gotten it a couple times, but I don't get a lot of new readers, and um, I feel like if you're a newer reader, I think the easier spot to start would be something like TikTok, which I think is why it's such a like book talk is so huge.
And maybe that's part of it because I see that question all the time. Like, where
Really?
should I start with fantasy? Where should I start? I see this. I probably get DM'd this once or twice a week. It's like I never read. I want to start reading, or I haven't read in like 10 years. What should I read first? And
That's so cool.
it's amazing. It's the best question and the most terrifying question ever because you don't want to screw it up for them. It's like don't give a book that's just going to turn them off to reading forever. I always throw out like Blake Crouch or just like something, really easy to read.
Yeah.
I want to throw out something like fantasy. I want to throw out Lies of Locke, but it's like, if this is your first book in a decade, maybe don't start there.
He's got the banter skill. His dialogue is like, look, nobody touches his dialogue.
Oh
Scott
my
Lynch is the
gosh.
dialogue master.
Oh my gosh. I get hot and bothered about Lies of Locke. I'll be honest with you.
Even I remember the first scene where he's choking him out. Can you still breathe? I can breathe fine. And, we're just waiting for I don't remember his name, but we're waiting for him. And I
Yeah.
could be here all day. You just have to choke me all day.
Oh man, Bug is the best.
Dude, have you read? Oh my gosh, dude, I got it. Holy crap. Have you read this? The Silver Blood Promise?
Yes.
Okay, did you love it?
So I liked it.
Okay.
The only issue I had with Silver Blood Promise was that it was marketed as Lies of Locke. It was like it got the Scott Lynch blurb. It was
Really?
it was getting so much buzz as if you love Lies of Locke, this is going to scratch that itch.
Huh.
I mean, that is amazing marketing because it got me to buy it. But it was also like, but this isn't Lies of Locke because Lies of Locke is a one of one. Nothing will ever capture that lightning in a bottle. And so there was a slight like, dang, it really isn't Lies of Locke, but it's still awesome. Like it was so much fun.
I think I get what you're saying, and it's not Lies of Lockamore. In fact, I didn't know that that's how it was marketed. I picked this book up because I got sent the ARC, and I believe I had seen a couple people. From what I understand, it was very popular on BookTube and TikTok, and
Yep.
it was a little bit before I noticed what was big. But I picked it up, and I just had a really fun time with it. And in my mind, I naturally connected those two books. Not that they're the same book at all.
Yep.
But I didn't know that the people were kind of marketing that as a Lies of Locke Lamora, because they're not. Yeah, there's so much more dimension as far as Scott Lynch's compared to James Logan's prose. I mean, this is James Logan's first book. I understand that was his first book too, Scott Lynch, but they're not in the same realm.
I think if you were to take Silver Blood Promise and change the marketing tactic from this is David Gemmell, but funnier.
Yeah.
Home run. But if you throw it in there, it's like, yeah, this is similar to Scott Lynch. I'm like, oh my God. Because I'll read Scott Lynch write the phone book, dude. Like, I don't care what he's writing about. I'll read it. There's some lofty expectations that you just start out with that James Logan does not need. He doesn't need those expectations because they are high.
Bro, if I ever put out a book, which I hope I do, I never, ever would compare anything I wrote to something that I love. Because look, that is a high expectation off the rip.
Oh,
look,
dude.
This is an original works, right? This is something that has this vein and that vein, but it is mostly original. That's what I would want as a marketing kind of ploy, if you will.
Yeah. I hope one day I get a book on a shelf, and that'd be tough because you pull from your influences heavily, but it is tough to be like, yeah, this isn't my influences because they're awesome and I'm just me. Or maybe that's just the imposter syndrome that never goes away. I don't know.
I get what you're saying. Now, I do still want to say the Silverblood Promise for me is a 5 out of 5. It was a lot of fun. It had some funny. Well, I believe her name was it Tick?
Was it Tick? Flea?
Flea. Why did I say Tick? Of course. Flea. She was hilarious, man. She was just like that buddy you always hope to have with an adventure, one that will keep you smiling in the dark times. And then I also loved how his father, although not being, and I'm not spoiling anything, guys, I promise, not being somebody he was close to, creates this adventure. I'm excited for book 2, man. And also, I talked to James Logan as soon as this came out. I had him on the channel, and he has a very unique standpoint. Like, he worked for Orbit Books. He was he was like the guy that chose whether or not to buy a trilogy, or like say, hey, I'm going to buy your transcript and I want it to be a trilogy kind of deal. That was his job. And so he kind of debunked a lot of those. You shouldn't write a book that's over 250,000 words. He's like, don't pay attention to word count. And he's like, if I get a book that's way too long or this and that, and I want it to be a trilogy, I'll say that. I'll tell him to shorten it down. If the writing's good, submit it. In case anybody was wondering.
That's awesome. Yeah. I need to go back and find that interview because I'd love to hear that. I was listening to, I can't remember who was interviewing him, but I was also paying attention when Silverblood was getting released. And I loved his perspective on the fantasy genre. I love David Gemmell. I think more people who love fantasy need to read David Gemmell.
I haven't read anything by him yet.
Dude, check out, here, let me grab it. I've got one right back here.
Grab it up, man. Josh is going to find out that grabbing things off the shelf is absolutely what we do here on live, man.
This one right here. Check out Waylander. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that. It might be flipped.
Yeah.
Really good. He's got like some of the, I guess the flawed hero or the kind of like elements of grimdark in there, but it's still in an era. He's writing in an era when heroic fantasy is like the only thing going. And it's a different tone to some of the other stuff when he's writing, but it's kind of like a stepping stone from, you can see how you got from like 80s and 90s stuff to modern stuff. And Gemmell's kind of like that little bridge point, which is really cool.
I started reading just because it was so late, and I guess just in my life, being a man and I wasn't young, I read naturally what I was I love darker themes, and grimdark was some of the first things I ever read. And now that's still true. I still read some grimdark, but I am a classic fantasy nut. I absolutely love anytime, there's a group of guys meeting at kind of like a lodge or a cabin, and they're getting ready to go somewhere. I don't know if you've read Ryan Cahill.
Yeah, I've read of Blood and Fire, and I'm getting ready to get into of Darkness and Light.
Dude, that whole book just had the tropes upon tropes that I love, man. And he did it with an adult flavor.
Yeah. I'm excited for those. I mean, he's blown up, but he like he's gotten some attention on Book Talk, but he's
Yeah.
one of those ones where it's like we probably should be talking about this guy more.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about to read his next two. I've heard lots of good things.
I haven't read every single book yet, but I did make sure because he just got signed, like published through the Broken Binding. Now I don't
Oh,
know what
cool.
all
I
that
think I did
entails,
see that. Yeah.
but that's super cool, man. That's where I actually got Liza Locklmora. Like I didn't read it until recently, and it was because that was the very first trilogy I got from Broken Binding.
That's awesome. I almost
I
bought
had to
those.
grab all of Ryan's in hardback because those will be kind of rare soon. I think
I
they'll come out
probably.
with other covers.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what they do with those because they did the special edition covers from Broken Binding, which are amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because he used what was the artist he used for his? I think he used Stuart Bash for his covers,
Yeah.
which like really good self-published covers.
Dude, you
Really,
seen Scott Palmer's new one?
I haven't.
Holy crap. He did this one. That's funny you say his name. And he did this one. This is my current obsession
Oh,
is Scott
sick.
Palmer. Dude, it's just the sickest self-pub book that I own. Period.
That is awesome.
It's absolutely gangster. Like that's the naked. It's just quality through and through.
So
And
good.
he's an amazing writer. Holy crap, dude. Scott Palmer is I hope he sees this because he probably doesn't know like I'm a closet groupie.
I'm going to write that down. Scott Palmer.
Yeah, I started with his novella naturally because he wrote one before, or he released it as a prequel novella. It's not necessary, but if I can gain any sort of lore history to add to the story, like that's where I'm going. I'm gonna get deep into the nerdism, if you will.
Have you noticed there's been a trend recently? I guess it's a Cahill thing. I don't know, but where you have the novellas. You've got a prequel novella and then novellas coming out in between big books in a series.
It's a marketing move.
It seems so obvious. Like, I don't know why people weren't doing this before, I guess now 2-3 years ago. But that's like, if you're going to self-pub something where the emphasis is on get something out, semi-frequently, try at least once or twice a year, getting out like smaller stuff in between your bigger things. It's like, that is brilliant. I don't know why we didn't think of that.
Opportunities. What it does is not only do you get to like fill in the gaps as like the bigger book is being written, but you also get to say, if I'm the author, sign up for my newsletter because look, the prequel novella is free. I'm going to send you the ebook for free. It is a marketing genius, dude. It is.
So good.
I love it. I think it's to be utilized very, very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen a few authors that are doing that now. And it's like, that's the way to go. Like if I ever finish something, I ever get to the point where it's like, I'm going to try and publish a book you almost have to. It's like, have something short, give them a little taste. And then if you like that, here's the book.
Yeah. If you're going to be successful in self-pub, which I think is something I would absolutely love to be, it comes with a lot of pressure to put the next thing out because people read quickly, especially if they love your stuff, man. People read so fast, much faster than I do.
Dude, I wish I could read as fast as some of these people out here do.
Yeah, it's nuts, dude. People like Esme Rosalind. I don't know if you know her, but she's a reviewer for Before We Go blog and Grimdark magazine. She is a gang. She lives in Denmark. Like, she just is a gangster. I don't know. She puts out a review like every other day, and she just finishes books like there's no tomorrow.
That is insane. If I get 40 books a year, that is a great year.
That's a great year. Come on. That's a great year.
That's like everything broke right. Nothing went bad. I got 40 books read. And you got some people that are like, yeah, I read 130. Excuse me.
Hold on. What do you do though? Like, what
how are you
between reading?
Oh, my wife is gangster too. Like she can knock out 50 or 60 books a year. Like no sweat. If she really, commits to it and she's in on it, she can knock them out so fast. And it's like, I don't know how you're doing this. You're killing me.
I love that. I love that take because I started reading first. My wife wasn't a reader either. And I got her into reading. She's more of like a psychological thriller, like specifically, and that's it really. She's read a couple fantasy that I've given her, One being, which was my very first Stephen King book, Fairy Tale. I loved it. I really did. She liked it too, but she sticks with, like I said, psychological thriller. Dude, she goes through like 90 pages a day. And I'm like, hold on. Like, you know that I'm supposed to be number one with the reader around here. I got you on the reading. How dare you? Like, beat me every day now. And she
Do y'all
does. She
have
whoops my butt.
like a little competition every year to see who can get more books read?
Oh, hell no, because I know I will unequivocally lose every single year. There's no reason to have a like, none. She knows this too. She knows how fast or like how slow I read. And
That's
also,
amazing.
she's an ebook person, which I think contributes to it a lot. I'm a
Definitely helps.
physical book reader.
Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
4 kids, right? We've got a 5, a 4, a 2, and a 1-year-old. There's no physical books being written or read. No, not happening. It's only
No
happening
chance.
at nighttime. And if it is, it's the ebook. She's just smarter for knowing that that's her limit.
Yeah. Man, my wife and I have a competition every year, and she has waxed me for like, I think we started this probably 2 or 3 years ago. She's crushed me every single year. And she's going to get me in books read this year, but I finally have her in pages read.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm holding that over her hardcore, letting her know, like, hey, you're not reading Malazan. You're reading, whatever it is she's reading, thrillers, rom-coms, whatever it is.
Is that what she's into? Is thrillers and rom-coms and
Yeah, she is getting into fantasy. She started reading Sarah J. Maas maybe last year, and then got through I think it was Throne of Glass series was the one she just finished. And I think that's going to be yeah. I think that's going to be her gateway drug to, like, John Gwynn's, Joe Abercrombie, something like that. I think we'll get her there eventually.
John Gwynn is to me what Scott Lynch is to you. Yeah.
He's great.
Norse man. He's the shield wall man. We're talking Norse language throughout the books. Just really clicked with me. Love it, man.
Yeah. I checked him out with when Shadow of the Gods came out. When that freaking amazing cover showed up, it's like, okay, I'm buying it off of cover alone. And oh wow, what a good book.
Now, have you read the trilogy, or you just kind of read book 1?
I haven't gotten Fury yet. I need to get my hands on that one, and then I'll finish it out. But I've read Shadow and Hunger.
Oh, so you're an Orca fan, right?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. She's great. She's just like the most badass, like, ever.
She absolutely is. Terrifying human being.
Yeah. Look, if your mom is Orca, and look, for me, I'll be honest. I've seen 4 children be birthed from my wife. They are far superior on the badassery scale than I'll ever be.
Oh, like, yeah.
Straight up.
Dude, once you witness your wife give birth, the amount of respect that you have it's off the charts. That is no joke, man. Dude, it's no joke.
Straight up realest thing that's ever been said on my channel ever, bro. That is it right there. I love that, dude. I love that so much because that's so true. It is. It's like once that's an experience, you're like, hold on, I need to reconsider my entire life because women are far superior in the pain scale. Look, my wife can kick my ass up and down the road 400 times.
Yeah. No, I mean, you almost get like secondhand trauma for them. And then you're like, if I am this distraught, how are they feeling right now? And I feel none of the pain. I'm just standing here trying not to, like, look like an idiot in the corner.
Oh, man, I love that. That's so wonderful. How blessed are we to have seen our wives give birth? That is a beautiful thing.
100%.
So, Brian, I don't know how to say his name, Redwall
guy. Yeah, we'll just say
the Redwall guy. So I know that's influential. Are there any other authors that were inspiring to you as a younger man?
That's I didn't read Gemmell until a couple of years ago. I came to Gemmell late. Really, Redwall is the one that I remember most clearly. I remember my parents read C.S. Lewis to me a lot, and so I got that a little bit. It's funny. Lord of the Rings, I think we can all say, is like the best fantasy series, most influential. However you want to categorize it, it's the GOAT of fantasy. Yeah. And I remember reading it, and like it was awesome, but I read it when I was like 14 or 15, and I just have not had the urge to go back and read it again. I don't know, maybe hot
No, I
take.
get it.
Like, I don't know. It just didn't, it wasn't one of the main ones, but yeah, I don't know. I think Redwall was the one that really got me into it. And then Lightbringer, that I came to that one later. And that was just, I don't know,
There's
snowball
nothing
effect.
wrong with that, and I get that. Like there was a point. In fact, it's funny. I just read The Hobbit, and I really, really, really loved it. And I think part of that too was having almost every single author that I've interviewed talk about that being foundational, which is why, it's the GOAT, right? It's the most, there's nothing more influential on fantasy than, Tolkien. There's just not. And
For
that's
sure.
like a fact. Like he came out with something that was truly his, with so much lore and depth to it that
Yeah.
people drew off of that, and it's been kind of like that seed.
Yeah.
That
No,
doesn't mean we all have to love it as our favorite books ever.
and it's crazy too, because if you compare what Tolkien was writing to what other people were writing when he was writing Lord of the Rings, it is so wildly different. Like
Mm,
C.S. Lewis is a contemporary, and he's got a sci-fi book. I think it's actually a series, but he's got a sci-fi book called Out of the Silent Planet or Into the
okay.
Silent Planet or something like that. And like it's sci-fi, but it's not really like an Asimov hard sci-fi kind of deal. It's kind of this conceptual thing that it's it's odd. And it's very different than anything you would recognize today. It's very much planted in that time. But
Well,
you
knowing that C.S. Lewis was very Christian faith based, which is nothing I disagree with. That's awesome. But um, I feel like as someone who had that type of view very, very passionately and incorporate that into your works, sci-fi would be a hard one to have that foundation and also write something hard sci-fi at that time in the world.
right. Yeah. No, it's an interesting little book, but you compare that to what Tolkien was writing at the same time. You're like, these could not be any more different at all. Like the only comparison is Dune, and apparently Tolkien hated Dune,
Mm,
which
I can
is
understand that. I have to say, I have to go back to Dune because I DNF'd it.
I need to read Dune again. I read it probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I think I bounced off of it. I probably got halfway through it, and it just I don't know. It probably
It's
was not the
tough.
right time.
The prose is very different, man. Herbert writes in a way that is not clear, to
No.
say the least. He writes in a way that is very, I don't know how to put it, maybe abstract. Uh,
Yeah.
he interprets things or hopes that you interpret things the way that he did. And that's what threw me off at first. I'm like, hold on, I am following nothing. So maybe
Yeah.
instead of being like systematic about it, I'll just go into it like blank and like nothing, no expectations. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah. I had a
Because I
buddy
want, yeah,
recently read it, and he was like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever read." And I was like, "Yeah, I probably should go read it again. I'm gonna
really,
give it another shot."
I believe it too. Like I believe it's such an influential series. Like that's another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
The badass herself, the one that I was just speaking of, my wonderful wife. She's late, but she made it. Probably dealing with the 4 children. Which, by the way, if you're wondering, babe, I was just telling everybody how much of a badass you are after giving birth to 4 children
Yeah, 2
and
claps.
some other terrible things that I'll never repeat. No, I'm just joking. Capricious Fox, what's going on? I'm not a big reader, but I want to reread Tolkien again someday. First read his books as an adult and loved them. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I love his, and I haven't read the trilogy yet, but I've read The Hobbit, and I really, because I want to take it. My initial plan was to read it with my son, my oldest son, first. Then I had this idea. I want to have somewhat of a relationship or knowledge of the book in order to give him a better first experience, which is still kind of my take on it. Now I think I'll read that trilogy before I read it with him, but I'm glad
Yeah.
I did that with The Hobbit because that's the first I'll read with
Yeah.
him.
That's a great place to start, man. The Hobbit's fun.
Herbert is not a describer. He's a thought poker. Sci-fi is all about idea. Exact. Yeah, I would say you're right.
Yeah. I've read that a lot. Like sci-fi is about ideas and concepts, whereas fantasy tends to be more about themes. I mean, they're both about character, but fantasy is almost, I don't know, it's just fundamentally different in the approach of it.
Yeah, there's a place where fantasy feels at home, and it's not where science fiction feels at home. Those are two different places.
Yeah.
Um,
It is cool though to see like the blend recently of science fiction and fantasy getting like Christopher Rocchio.
dude, you literally just stole the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask if you were a Sun Eater fan.
Yeah, I'm reading Empire of Silence right now, and it's
Bro.
oh, he is so freaking talented
He was
as a
18 or
writer.
19 when he was writing that, by the way.
That is he funny enough, he lives like an hour away from me. I
Yeah,
have
you're wrong.
stalked him. I have stalked him and figured out where he lives. He oh my gosh. Yeah, he's one of those writers where you just read him, and some writers are like this. You read him and you're like, I don't know if I could ever do that. There's a quality to it. There's something where the writing is singing. And if you read Empire of Silence and you add to that an 18-year-old wrote it, you're gonna be like, this is absurd. The level
Dude,
of yeah.
I instantly fell on the band. Like I think it was Mike's book reviews who I
That's
saw
who turned me on
was
it too.
talking about it. And I finally tried Empire of Silence. And to say that an obsession started is to put it mildly. And it was one of my first, well, it was my very first science fantasy. And I was very new to sci-fi at that time. And I felt myself so at home, dude, like just so at home. So I'm savoring it. I'm savoring. I don't want to finish it tomorrow. I'm in Howling Dark right now. I'm savoring going through it. It's so good too.
How I've heard that the series changes quite a bit. Obviously, I'm still in Empire Silence, so I don't know how things change, but I've heard that it like Empire Silence is a bit slower, a bit more contemplative, a bit more thematic.
Yeah.
Does it I've heard it gets crazy, like absolutely bonkers nuts in like books 2 and 3.
Yeah. So I'm not going to even give anything away about like specifics about like how book one open or book two opens. But the opening of book two will blow your mind instantly because of just uh the number. I won't say anything, but there's the numbers that they come up with as far as like a time span is nuts, dude. It blew my mind. It spread my imagination farther than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah. Whew. That's a wild series. I'm excited to get into that. I'm hoping I've been reading Malazan this year as like the priority series, and I'm hoping once I
Okay.
can get through it, I can get into Sun Eater.
That's so, man, I've started Gardens of the Moon like 10 times. Where are you at with it?
Oh, it's so hard to recommend, not because it's not amazing. It's
Right.
just because I think you probably have to be in a certain headspace to get through the amount of reading you have to get through before you're hooked. Like I
Okay.
wasn't hooked until the end of book 2. But the end of book 2 was probably the best ending of a book I had read to that point. It
I've heard.
blew my face off. It was
I hear there's
unreal.
better ones the farther you keep going too. Like the way that Matt's fantasy book reviews talks about it. I mean, it was, and it always will be his favorite series ever.
There's something about it where like Gardens of the Moon it feels a bit like an acid trip. It feels like you are working without all the information, which you are. So it's difficult. Fully get that. And people bounce off of it. And Dead House Gates is sort of the same way. Like pretty much the entire time he's writing, there's always a feeling like you're missing something that you're going to get later. But there's just a trust that you develop after like book 2 and once you get into Memories of Ice, where it's like, yeah, I know how this is going to end. It's going to be incredible. And even in the moment, it's great writing. But yeah, ending of Dead House Gates, like can't stress enough, one of the most fantastic endings to a book ever. And then Memories of Ice was from cover to cover insanity. And I just finished House of Change, which was really good as well. Erickson's another one of those like really, really talented writers.
You know, him and his buddy Esselmont went out to make it sounds like from everybody I've heard, they created exactly what they set out to create.
Yeah.
It was something more epic than anybody's ever written, something that wasn't sure to be like an answer getter early in the books, but the trust that you put in the author is key from what I understand.
Yeah. And that is why it's tough to recommend, because you have to develop that trust, and you don't just innately have the trust to know that it's going to be as good as everybody says it is. Like, you have to come to it yourself. And you're not going to come to it reading Gardens of the Moon, unfortunately. You're
And
probably not going to come to it reading like the first half of Dead House Gates. Like, you have to get pretty far into it before you're really in. And that's kind of the tough part of it.
even Gardens of the Moon is intimidating, not only for those facts, but if you read the physical book, the words
Oh yeah.
are so small. And when you realize, like, there's what, I don't know how many pages, but there's a lot. And you're like, hold on, I'm not going to be flipping very frequently.
Oh yeah.
And I think that can get overwhelming to readers.
Yeah. No, it's it's tough. And like, it requires a lot from the reader, but it is not unrewarded reading. Like, you get what you put into it 1000%. And I think that's why that's why it's so good. I saw a comment that in here that I think somebody said it's Philip's favorite. If that is Philip Chase, then yeah,
Okay.
he and Matt's fantasy book reviews got me into Malazan, and everything they say about it's 100% right.
Dude, Philip's straight up intelligent gangster. He is. He's like the intellectual gangster of Booktube.
Such a nice guy too.
Yeah, he is. And his editor, the guy, I only do chats back and forth. I don't remember his name, but he's a wonderful guy too. They've done a lot of stuff together, but what I loved in particular was their take on the Wheel of Time show, and how they compared the literature to the TV show in a way that I could practice for 1,000 years and never sound as smart as they do.
Yeah, I can't. It's yeah, he always does those live streams with I can't remember the guy's name now. It's the Scottish guy he always is talking with.
Yeah,
They're lovely. I'll put them
they
on
are.
my lunch break. They're fun to listen to.
You'll be smarter afterwards, I promise. At least I
For
will.
sure.
All right. So, if you could pick one author to interview, who would be a dream interview for you?
It probably would be, as no surprise to anybody, it would be Scott Lynch.
No, that's great.
Well, so I guess in preparation for this, well, not in preparation, I watched the interview you did with him as soon as it came out, because I've watched every interview he's done that's on YouTube, because I'm that level of a fan, I guess. But there's something that I can't quantify that those books did for me. And it could just be like the time that I read them, that there was just something about it where it all came together, and it was like the magic sauce in the moment, and the lightning was in the bottle or something. I don't know, but he his writing sings in a way that very few authors can. Like, Joe Abercrombie has this a little bit, but Lynch has, it's kind of this, he's writing from the seat of his pants, but it's very carefully gone over. And there's just like, there's a quality that's himself, his own, where nobody else can do it, because it is truly just him.
It is, dude. Holy crap.
It's so good. It's great characters. The plotting is almost secondary. Like, I don't even care what they're doing. Locke and John, like, they could just be talking about literally who cares what, and I'm reading it because the characters are so well done.
Now, tell me if you had this same, like, after talking with him, because I made sure not to watch a bunch of interviews on purpose. But after talking with him, putting the two together as just, it's a natural translation from personality and intellectualism to paper and narrative. It's very, very honest.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
I would love to pick his brain on the craft of writing. I think he would be so much fun to talk about. Like, how did you get this section of text on the page? Like, where did that come from? Like, what are you trying to accomplish in this scene? You know, where do you come up with some of these one-liners? Is that just like knee-jerk stuff where you just like had a cocktail and it came out, or was that something where, you know, you heard it somewhere? I know, like, if I write a line that I really enjoy, sometimes that line comes out of, I saw something that somebody said in like a Netflix comedy special. I saw Dave Chappelle say something really funny, and like I'll write it down and save it for later. And then 6 months later, it marinates and turns into something else, and it makes it a line in a book. But sometimes it's like completely knee jerk, and you have no idea where it came from. And it's just like, okay, well, I guess that's going to stay in there for a little bit. We'll just see if it makes a final cut. But it would be so much fun to talk about just craft, and just how to write. Cause that is one thing I haven't seen a ton of. And I think it's tough to talk about because there's a little bit of like, you put it on a pedestal and you don't really know how to talk about something that is so difficult to teach and so difficult to learn.
What you could bring to the YouTube Booktube realm is that kind of conversation, because I'm not familiar enough with his work to have that conversation with him. I have a generalized idea and experience with book one. I haven't read book 2 or 3, and it's very new to me. I haven't reread it. It's been one time. And, you know, having him on the channel was something that was kind of something very cool, where it took a while to kind of schedule it. Like, it was, I had tenacity, but have somebody that has the knowledge and who is familiar with his prose like you are, man, I think that would be epic. And I hope to maybe one day do that, but it's not going to be for a while. I'm not that familiar like you with his work, and you seem very, very intimate with his work, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I would, it would be fun. It would make my week. It would make my year. And part of it too is I think I just, again, about it where it just hit me the right way, and it came together, you know, and it is what it is. But
I'll tell you what that one is for me, and it was the reason that I'm here on a fantasy-based booktube, and it's not anything that you've maybe even heard of. And it was Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
Let me see. So this got me into fantasy. It's a Victorian London dark academia that doesn't feel like the rest of the dark academias. Very, very gothic, has horror elements. It involves kids that have kind of gotten the shitty hand in life. And you end up empathizing with every single one of them, especially if you listen to the audiobook, because his name is Ben. I can't pronounce his last name, but he has the most incredible narration voice that I've ever heard, like right there with Andy Serkis.
Awesome.
And Stephen Pacey.
Yeah.
Those would be my top 3, actually. Ben, who does the Stephen Pacey, and Andy Serkis. Book 2 just came out, Bringer of Dust. But yeah, man, it is a Victorian feeling, like London gothic vibe with empathy and emotion, some magic, and it just won me. It did. I don't know what it is about it. Just like you can't point to exactly what it is about Lies of Locke Lamora, but it's there.
Yeah. It's a I don't know. It's an unquantifiable thing. I hope everybody has a book like that, because there's something about it that is, I mean, it's so much fun to talk about the books that you love with other people who also have books that they love that are different from the books you love, because you get to share that like eyes wide open, magic pixie dust sort of thing, where you're like, this thing did something to me that I don't even understand, but it was awesome. And I want you to experience that thing too, which at its core, that is what YouTube, what Book Talk, I mean, that's what we're all trying to do, is we want everybody to have that moment, or those series of moments where you read a book and it just changes you somehow, some way, in a way that you don't even understand yet. because that feeling, that moment is incredible, and I hope everybody gets that.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think that anybody who reads like voraciously or is a very well read person probably has to have a moment like that for them to continuously chase or go through books the way that they do.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe that's wrong, but that's just my opinion. I know for me, it would never have happened until I had that moment, right?
Yeah.
I would probably not be on Booktube. I'd probably just be reading a couple books a year. But I had that experience, and now that I have, I'm glad because it's opened me up to different genres and similar experiences within different genres.
Yeah. You mentioned that you write as well. What was like the moment or the book or the series of books where you're like, I want to do that. I have to do
John
that.
Glenn, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Shadow of the Gods. And what it was is I remember the opening scene like it was read to me for my whole entire life. It was Orca and Thorkel with their son, and uh, he misses an elk, and like kind of like a better luck next time, son. But it's a family. They're teaching their son how to hunt, which is in my head is just such a foundational moment for a young man. And it was beautiful. I can just picture the moss and the elk putting its head down and looking up, and it was just it was vivid for me. And that's when I was like, I want to learn how to give someone that feeling.
Mm. Yeah. Well, speaking of the Lynch interview, that was one thing that I think he said to you that it was like a light bulb moment where he's trying to create like a feeling in his reader. And he's not necessarily chasing like a plot outcome. I want to generate this, you know, building up of feelings in the person reading what I'm writing, which I hadn't heard that before. And that's a very well put way to do it, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do.
Well, I think it's ballsy too because it's so true yet unquantifiable, like you said. You can't give somebody that skill. It has to be
Yeah.
found, I think. You know, I don't know if Scott ever thought of himself as someone who could give that feeling, but maybe with the success of that series, he's found out some of the things that he hoped would work did work. So now using similar tactics and maybe just going with his gut. I don't know. I'm not him. And it would take a million years for me to ask the amount of questions that I truly had, right?
Hmm.
Uh, like, but those insights, those really honest insights, I think he gave really well. And he's funny too.
He
So
is
it's like,
funny.
yeah, he's
He's a
hilarious,
funny
dude.
dude.
He's like, I told him, I said, I just got a bookshelf behind me. He's like, dude, I thought you were for real, man. I don't even want to do this no more. And I almost had to like stop. I had to remind myself that he was just a funny person
Hmm.
and not be all sensitive because he's that kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
Which just explains so much about his writing too.
Yeah. No, it's
Uh,
perfect.
this is a hard question. Someone you would like to see on my show. It could be an editor, a writer. It could be another content creator. Is anybody that you particularly enjoy watching or reading or anything that you would like to see me talk with?
That is tough. I do think I've mentioned him a couple times, but I think Michael Kist would be really interesting on here. He he does a lot of history stuff. But he was the reason that I started making book talk videos, where it's like I watched his videos and I was like, I have these same interests. I can do that. And it's the kind of thing where push goes to shove and you're just like, I'm gonna do this. But
Is it KIST?
yeah, KIST. Yep. He's here on YouTube as well. He recently went full time in the content creation thing.
Is he
Um,
bald?
yeah,
Okay, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I
yeah, he's
know
a
who you're talking about.
baller.
Straight up
Um,
Roman history nut.
yes.
Yeah, dude.
Yep. Yeah. Back when everybody was doing the My Roman Empire trend, and that was the whole deal, he was posting videos about reading books about the Roman Empire, and he went nuclear.
Yeah, it was so cool to see that. I did. Now I know who you're talking about because for some reason with the TikTok, there's only a few names that I remember, and now that you bring him up, like I remember his name's Michael. I just didn't know the last name, but I watch him all the time.
Yeah, super cool dude.
Particular for his history stuff, because that's where I want to read but lack.
It's so cool because I think there's a easy carryover between fantasy and history that I guess history readers don't tend to jump to fantasy because they want to stay more in the nonfiction space. And I feel like fantasy readers tend to read the occasional history, but they don't. There's not a ton of overlap. Where with him, there's a lot of overlap.
A lot.
And so he's reading John Gwynne, but then he's also going and reading, Dan Jones or Tom Holland or like straight history. But he
Another
does
one of
it.
his favorites really shocked me. It was the Spear, something the Spear. It was by a guy. It's like a blue and green cover. It's like something the Spear in water. I don't remember, but it was
Yeah, the Spear Cuts Through Water. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, hold on, that does not seem like a book he would love.
No.
So he's got a unique taste. He does.
Yeah. Spear Cuts. That is a trippy book.
I haven't read it. Would you recommend it?
I don't know. I didn't personally love it, but I think
I've heard that opinion the most.
Yeah, I think here's what it is. That book, you will either love it or like genuinely loathe it, but there's really no in between. It's either going to be the best book you read all year or it's the worst book you will read all year.
I'm gonna have to attempt it.
Yeah, it's probably worth giving it a shot just to see if it'll land for you, but I think for me it didn't quite land.
Yeah, and I'm gonna guess that I'll have that similar but experience just based off what I know about it. And those of who I trust their opinions had the same kind of experience with it. But hey, I just want to dip my toes in the water. If I don't feel that there's fireworks going off, I'm going to assume that there's probably a good chance that the rest of the book is that way, just from what I've heard of it. But no shame on the guy that wrote it. Wonderful, man. A lot of people love it. Lots of people love it. Some of the people, it's a favorite book ever.
Yeah, it's a talented writer. I will say that. Like, it's real good in terms of like the craft of writing. But it's second person. It's kind of, the narrative is a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. So it's different, but it is really cool.
Wonderful, man. Well, man, I think we've kind of reached the point where I just want to say thank you so much, dude, for coming to hang out with me, and especially being able to plan it last minute, dude. And I just really appreciate it, and all of the wonderful things we talked about, bro, and you bringing your side of the street with you.
Yeah, dude, thanks so much for having me on. I'd love to do this again at some point. This was a blast.
Always. I always tell people, if I have you on once, I want to have you on 1,000 times, brother. And that's the exact same with this. I've had so much fun. And I also want to make sure to tell the family for letting me borrow you for a little bit, man. I know that I took a little time away from the little one and the wifey. Tell them thank you so much, because it was so fun.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Shoot me a message anytime you want me on. I'd love to do it again.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here, that we're here live. Man, looking over here, I tried to get as many questions. I don't think I missed any questions. If I did, I'm so sorry. But you guys are wonderful. You make it so much fun. And anybody who watches it on replay, put in the comments your favorite part. I always love getting that insight, especially from people who watch the replay, because I think they have a better, instead of acting like instead of feeling like they have to chat, they're kind of just listening more. So if you have a favorite part, please put it in the comments and let me know. And of course, the YouTube stuff, please like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It helps me and everybody I have on. And tomorrow, I'm actually going to be a guest on somebody else's channel. That doesn't happen very often. I'm very excited. Brian Bell. I believe it's tomorrow at 8. I'm not 100% sure. It'll be announced. We'll get there. But I'm excited either way. Thank you, Josh. Thank you all that were here live. We will see you very soon. Oh, also, go to all the links. Josh's link tree is in the description. Make sure to go and subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff, because his content is top tier good.
I appreciate it. Have a good one, y'all.
Have a good one, guys.